Nick Reiner's arraignment in his murder trial took place in Los Angeles this morning. Now, it had previously been continued because his attorney, who at the time was Alan Jackson, withdrew. And with that, he made some pretty strong statements to the press. Now, Alan Jackson said he had no choice but to withdraw. People speculate it was for financial reasons, which, makes sense to me. I've seen people throw around conflict of interest for a couple reasons, too. I didn't quite understand that. I don't know his background and history with the family. But lawyers can only say so much about why they're withdrawing. The statement he made that was actually really controversial was that based on the law, Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. And not too long after that, TMZ comes out with a whole documentary, which seems to dismiss a lot of important factors, in my opinion. I went over that whole thing. I'll link to that in the comments if anybody wants to watch my review of that. But I was not a fan of the documentary. But Nick has now actually entered his not guilty plea. He had not done that yet. So that happened this morning, and it seems he'll almost certainly try to use some kind of insanity defense. He has a long history of mental health issues and substance abuse disorder, and he's spoken pretty openly about that in the past. A lot of what the TMZ documentary did, and what I expect Nick's attorneys might do, is try to blame the healthcare system and the doctors for failing him, basically. I guess they would try to paint that picture. And while that can be true, I think it was wildly irresponsible to come out and present that as fact. Because the doctors, nurses, etc., who were treating him, they can't come out and say, hey, no, he refused XYZ on whatever occasion. Most of the time, you can't force people to do certain things, even if they are in treatment. And that's no fault of his family, who certainly seem to have tried everything they could possibly do to get him help. And it may not be the fault of the doctors who tried their best to treat him when he potentially refused, because he is the way he's spoken in the past and the way he's behaved in the past. And from what we know, it seems that he has not always taken his treatment very seriously or followed through with it as much as he should. But my opinions on all of that are kind of in that documentary review that I was just telling you about. Anyways, he's now officially pleaded not guilty to murdering his parents, Rob Reiner and Michele Reiner. His next court appearance is going to be on April 29th, so that's a little over 2 months from now. So his trial, if there is one, it's probably not going to be for a while. These things take time. If I recall correctly, there's a component here that also may allow them to pursue the death penalty. Our healthcare systems can fail people in ways that can end in tragedy, but there's also, remember, the drug use component here, which I don't know if or what he was using at the time this happened. So it's hard to really even say if something is a mental health symptom. If you don't know if somebody's high, that's a very different thing, because you're voluntarily taking a substance that's going to have those consequences. And that especially if you have a long history of drug use that has led to psychosis in the past. I haven't seen anything official that would confirm or deny that. Reports of his use in the past and his behavior, before this happened, that doesn't really, I need to see something formal. And then, of course, even without drugs on board, there's the whole issue of, it matters what your state of mind was at the time you allegedly commit these murders. Having a history of psychotic episodes in the past doesn't actually mean much as far as your responsibility for your actions in that moment. It's really hard to successfully use a defense like that, and it should be. That's absolutely how it should be, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're setting it up so that malingerers can just commit violent crimes left and right and use that as an excuse. This is something that should be put under heavy scrutiny, and it should have a very high standard. So the arraignment, unsurprisingly, was extremely short. There's not too much else to say about that right now, but I just wanted to keep up with that because I had been following along with everything so far. Like I said, not much is going to be going on until at least April is his next court appearance. So thanks, guys. See you later.